Greetings, grade 28 facilitators. As we near the end of this term, we will look at lesson 9. And lesson 9 will be very much like week 8 in format, in that we're going to look at just 2 passages. And as we move through these 2 passages, you're just essentially trying to put together all that you've learned up to date. And so the first passage will be from 1 John chapter 4. And you will read that passage, and then it's going to ask you a couple questions there. What is the second use of the law in this passage? That is, the law as a mirror. And then what is the third use, guide of the law in this passage? Third use functions very much for a description of what the new life looks like in Christ. And so you will identify those and move through those, and then a few other questions about that text. And then you'll move into Colossians chapter 3. And read through that and answer the question, is this text largely law or gospel? And in many ways it's law, because it's telling you a number of things that we should do, okay? But it's not only law and gospel that should be the measure for every verse, for example. In this case, you're going to see that in the one sense, the second use of the law could function as you read this, if the Spirit convicted you that you need to show more compassion, humility, meekness, and patience, and that sort of thing. But there's also the other part of, in a sense, a third use as it describes, and God helps us to better understand what it looks like to be dressed in these gifts of the Spirit and fruits of the Spirit. As we seek to live out according to those. So it's a great description for the life we've now been called to live in the world as we go through this passage. So kind of just talk about those things, maybe some of the things, if you want to add anything here, is which one of these is hardest for you, or do you struggle with the most? And you could also maybe even add that in the end to the prayer list. And so then we're going to get into this interesting part of what's the relationship between the third use of the law and the gospel in the daily life of the believer. Sorry about that, messed up the question. So third use will tell us and describe to us what it looks like, and the gospel will provide the necessary strength for us to live out that new way of life and our better understanding what it looks like through passages like this. Okay, so there's a really good connection between the third use and the gospel. Is the gospel gives you the strength to live the life that's described by the third use of the law. Okay? And then lastly, the prayer is going to be kind of an explanation from the small catechism as it relates to the petition, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And then you'll have the prayer list. So hopefully there will be more talking with these passages and knowing the challenges and knowing hopefully that you can share your hearts with one another and talk about those things that you struggle with and things that you're praying for as it relates to that. So this is a pretty easy, straightforward study as these last 3 weeks will continue to be. So have a good study, and thank you for leading.